Okay, so in this presentation, I'm supposed to discuss about Chinese activity at sea,
Sure.
and I will be talking about the economic and geopolitical interests, as well as naval modernization and strategic considerations in the Chinese maritime domain.
Sure.
So throughout the presentation, the distinction between economic and geopolitical interests may seem hazy. That is the nature of Chinese activity. So, China's major role in the global economy implies its dependence on global logistics in the maritime sphere. An estimated 85% of China's trade goes through sea lines of communication in the Indian Ocean region. Over half of the world's maritime trade in petroleum transits the Indian Ocean alone, and part of this trade is also China's necessary energy requirements coming in way of oil and gas from West Africa and West Asia and Africa. As such, Chinese naval buildup can be seen as being a response of the threats it perceives against its slocks to be emerging from New Delhi and Washington in the IOR and the broader Indo-Pacific. Beijing states piracy as being a major threat to the safety of its merchant shipping and uses this to justify naval buildup in the IOR. The political and academic classes in China both propagate that Chinese presence in the IOR serves the mere purpose of protecting Chinese economic assets and interests. All this while PLAN submarines make port calls in Sri Lanka and Pakistan, in India's immediate neighborhood. Chinese academic Yang Jiemin put forward four reasons for these visits: anti-piracy, countering terrorism, giving the example of the 26/11 attacks of how the terrorists entered India via the sea, and dealing with natural disasters, and China's need to build up its naval forces along with the general development of the navy. So it can be understood through all, if you look at Chinese activity, that it's mainly the fourth reason, which they do not emphasize a lot, but that is the reason. The PLAN's anti-piracy operations in the IOR use high-end naval capability platforms and equipment in what are essentially a low-level security task. Questions are raised which seek to determine whether Beijing intends to mislead, misinform, and keep the international community guessing, or whether its ambitions have overstretched its strategic abilities to produce plausible justifications for its activities. Through aggressive moves, China continues to discomfort India through the string of pearls concept, through which it attempts to both secure slots as well as contain the expanding grip of the Indian Navy in the IOR. Meanwhile, Gwadar is the maritime terminus of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, just 400 kilometers east of the Strait of Hormuz, through which 40% of Chinese energy imports flow. While the CPEC is claimed to be a project of innocent economic nature, intelligence reports frequently show the construction of housing for PLAN Marine Forces. It is also evident that the construction of a deep sea port can play a key role in supplying and maintaining greater Chinese presence in the IOR. The CPEC connects Balochistan to Xinjiang via road, rail, and pipeline networks. This can give Beijing a certain degree of comfort during dire times, curing it of its Malacca dilemma. I will speak more about Malacca dilemma in further slides. A base in Gwadar will complement current Chinese presence in the Arabian Sea alongside the existing logistics support facility in Djibouti. The Maritime Silk Route is the sea route of the Belt and Road Initiative, China's strategic initiative to increase investment and foster collaboration across the ancient historical Silk Road. Chinese policy in the Indo-Pacific does not rely only on guns, but also on bread and butter, through the promise of infrastructural development as part of the Maritime Silk Road or Belt and Road Initiative or the One Belt One Road project. These projects enable China to enforce its presence and secure its economic, political, and security interests by the way of promising investment. And Chinese investments promise the development of infrastructure and civilian projects in the given country while also securing political tenures for the leaders willing to bend the knee. So, what this means is that China invests in a country, the people see infrastructure develop, and this persuades voters of the country to ensure that the leader gets re-elected and stays in office. An example of this can be in Sri Lanka, but also in Maldives, where many people expected the predecessor, uh, who was a Chinese lackey, to come back to power. Countries to whom China extends its line of credit are generally financially weak and tend to default in payment. The country is therefore stuck in a debt trap, repaying Beijing through other means. Among the most prominent examples of this Chinese debt trap is that of Hambantota port in southern Sri Lanka. Experts and workers in the field had predicted that the port would be a success, considering that it sits not right next to the sea lines of communication passing through the IOR, which connects the Malacca Strait to uh, Western Asia. But the economic failure of the Chinese developed port led to the government handing over the port and 15,000 acres of land around it for 99 years as repayment for loans. This gives China direct access to one of the busiest civilian and military slots, sitting a stone's throw away from India. China has been attempting for a very long time to break free of the threats it faces through the first and second chains surrounding its maritime borders. These chains block China from gaining direct access to the Pacific Ocean. Some sensitive places where the Chinese are looking to establish a stronger military presence disguised by civilian presence through port access and development include Vanuatu, Tonga, and East Timor in the Pacific, and Papua New Guinea, and other sensitive countries beyond the Pacific in the IOR include Tanzania, Myanmar, Pakistan, and Maldives.